Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 144 based on novel. So let's start. The next day, when the first ray of sunshine in the sky sprinkled on Xiao Yang's face, Xiao Yan closed his eyes all night and suddenly opened them at this moment. In a pair of painted black eyes, the gorgeous flame light flashed in an instant, and together with his breath, he immediately became incomparably thick. Hu! Slowly and deeply exhaled a breath. Xiao Yang raised his eyes and looked straight into the forest in the distance. The dark vision was like an arrow through the cloud, passing through the gap between countless branches and leaves. At the end of the line of sight, Xiao Yang seemed to see an ancient warcraft sleeping. This is... A little surprised in his heart, Xiao Yang couldn't help but make a sound of surprise in his mouth, and then the next moment, the warcraft beyond the end of his sight seemed to have found something. A pair of closed huge animal pupils suddenly opened, and there was a warm anger in a man-sized brown animal pupil. Human beings, dare you peep at the Emperor? A low roar was issued, which was like thunder bursts for a moment. The whole mountain forest was violently shaken at the moment. The warcraft in the mountain forest were shocked back by the sound. Even some human fighting emperors who heard the roar also had a sudden change in their facial expression. While they were shocked, their body shape also quickly regressed. Buzz. When Xiao Yang took back his mind, the low animal roar still echoed in his mind like a bell. The invisible pressure almost made his mind crack. However, in the twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang's whole face had become red, the green veins on his forehead were agitated, and even a pair of painted black eyes were filled with blood at the moment. It is almost conceivable how much pain Xiao Yang is suffering at the moment. The sharp pain in his mind made Xiao Yang's face suddenly distorted. In the twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang's clothes were soaked in cold sweat. Damn it! Give me the town! Suddenly, Xiao Yang, who was suffering, suddenly roared in his mouth and shocked his body. In his mind, the terrible soul power swept out of the soul bead and quickly spread to the outside of his body, wrapping the space within a few feet of Xiao Yang's body. In this space, the powerful soul prestige is rising. Finally, when the soul-shaking low roar was completely removed from Xiao Yang's mind, Xiao Yang slowly relaxed his body, and a look of lingering fear appeared on his face. What a terrible power! Just roaring can make me work hard. How terrible is this guy's noumenon? Bitterly, Xiao Yang took back his eyes, but he didn't dare to look in that direction anymore. Joking, if the strong at that level really annoyed him, I'm afraid he can't leave his position at the moment at Xiao Yang's speed. Even, Xiao Yang has no doubt that the strength of this warcraft is definitely much better than the 4 strong fighting emperors of the 4 families. I'm afraid its worst strength is the 4-star fighting emperor. Hey, you're really lucky. Fortunately, he didn't take you seriously. Otherwise, I'm afraid you would have died long ago. At this time, the bone yu in Xiao Yang's body was a leisurely way. Hearing Ji Yu's joking voice, Xiao Yang couldn't help smiling and shaking his head. Ji Yu Laro shook his hand. The shopkeeper did a good job and said that he would no longer be in charge. If Xiao Yang hadn't been determined just now, I'm afraid if he let the roar reverberate again, he would really be killed here. Old Bone, that guy, what kind of warcraft is it? It's so terrible. Hey, it's just a little monkey. Of course, it's really scary for you. Ji Yu smiled and joked. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang couldn't help but skim his mouth. Then Guyo continued to say, the great ape in the sky, the 5-star fighting emperor. In a word, 8 words, but it made Xiao Yang's face look dull. He didn't expect that this guy would be a 5-star fighting emperor level warcraft. 5-star fighting emperor, tut, it's really terrible. His eyes were slightly frozen, and Xiao Yang couldn't help but be shocked. 5-star fighting emperor, this strength, looking at the ruins at the moment, is fully capable of killing anyone present. I have to say that the great ape is really terrible, but... Then, when Xiao Yang was surprised, Ji Yu said softly again. Xiao Yang's face was a little stunned, and he didn't feel a trace of doubt. The great ape in the sky seems to have been sealed by someone. As soon as he said this, Xiao Yang was stunned, but immediately, he was stunned. The great ape of the 5-star fighting emperor was sealed. It's hard to imagine how terrible this guy's real strength should be. Come on, don't think about it. Let's go. You haven't found the frozen soul fruit yet. Is it difficult because a 5-star fighting emperor hasn't found the frozen soul fruit yet? Jiu urged. After returning to his mind, Xiao Yan nodded. At present, it's better to find the condensed soul fruit first. Taking back his mind, Xiao Yan continued to sit around, his eyes slowly closed, and his mind moved. In the middle of his eyebrows, the vast soul power immediately swept away in all directions. With the lesson just learned, Xiao Yan was much more cautious at this time. At the same time, he tried to avoid all the warcraft with strong breath in the mountains and forests. The vastness of the ancient forest was obviously beyond Xiao Yan's expectation. Even with Xiao Yan's soul power, after searching for a quarter of an hour, he still didn't find it. On the contrary, he was almost provoked by several powerful warcraft. However, despite this, Xiao Yan didn't feel anxious about it. Instead, he calmed down and searched every piece of land in the mountain forest carefully, hoping to find some information about Ninghan fruit from now on. With the continuous spread of Xiao Yan's soul power, time seems to flow quietly like quicksand between his fingers. Invisibly, Xiao Yan has searched for an hour. Under Xiao Yan's careful search inch by inch, finally, his kung fu is worthy of his heart. When Xiao Yan's face turns pale, suddenly, Xiao Yan's soul power diffuses to a place, and finally finds what the old man in grey robe said that day, a lake, a circular lake. Under the exploration of Xiao Yan's soul power, in the middle of the lake, there really is a small island. Found it. At the moment of finding the lake, Xiao Yan couldn't help but burst into a color of ecstasy. He couldn't help shouting in his heart. Together with the spread soul power, there was a slight fluctuation. Roar. It was because of this fluctuation that Xiao Yan's soul power that had spread over the lake was suddenly shocked. Xiao Yan, who was in the mountains, heard a startling animal roar again. At the same time, the power that spread over the lake was forcibly dispersed in this animal roar. In the mountain forest, Xiao Yan's face suddenly turned white. When his eyes were neutral, there was a dignified color. Sure enough, the strength of this guy is really not comparable to an ordinary star king. Recalling what the old man in black robe said, Xiao Yan's eyes could not help but coagulate slightly, but then a pair of white palms slowly clenched into fists, and a firm color appeared in his black pupils. Even if Xiao Yan's strength is not better than the peak at the moment, he must try anyway in order to get the soul condensation fruit. Who? Once again, he took a deep breath out of his mouth. Xiao Yan slowly stood up, turned his eyes and looked in the direction of the lake. If it was right, Ninghengguo was right there. Then, Xiao Yan tiptoed on the tree trunk, and his feet burst out. Xiao Yan's body was like an arrow away from the bow, flying rapidly towards the depths of the mountain forest. Between the mountains and forests, Xiao Yan's body is like a ghost. He shuttles through countless towering ancient trees at the speed of lightning. Even when passing some human emperor fighting strong men, those people can only see a vague black light flash away from their eyes, but they can't tell what it is. The area of this ancient forest is so large that even though Xiao Yan's speed is terrible, he still has a very long distance from the lake after shuttling for more than 10 minutes. This surprised Xiao Yan in his heart. At the same time, he couldn't help but marvel at the owner of the ruins. I really don't know how powerful the owner of this relic has reached. Along the way, Xiao Yan also felt a lot of fierce breath. Even several times, Xiao Yan had passed by some monstrous warcraft animals with huge body size. If Xiao Yan had not been amazing, I'm afraid there would be a fierce battle with them. Hiss. However, at a certain moment, Xiao Yan, who was flying at a high speed, couldn't help but pause. He frowned and turned his head to look behind him. With his powerful soul power, Xiao Yan can detect that somewhere in the mountain forest, some of the strong fighters he had previously swept over seem to be flying in the direction where he is now, and there are a lot of them. Look at this, because Xiao Yan should have attracted them. Damn, it's really a group of wolves. They bite when they catch them. It seems that they must speed up. He scolded bitterly in his heart. Xiao Yan suddenly turned back, his body shook, and the speed of fighting in his body became more rapid. He moved his steps, and Tianjue's step suddenly showed up. His body shape flashed, and immediately turned into a breeze, whistling through the mountains and forests, and threw away the group of people behind him. Time passed quickly in Xiao Yang's rapid journey. In the twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang had been flying for nearly half an hour with the sky's unique steps, and until now, in the exploration of Xiao Yang's soul power, the lake appeared again. Found it. This time, Xiao Yang was not as ecstatic as before, but tried his best to suppress the emotion in his heart and fly forward at a high speed. At the same time, the soul force carefully spread towards the lake, carefully crossed the void above the lake and approached the small island in the center of the lake. Before approaching, Xiao Yang's soul power has felt an extremely pure and surging soul power. Feeling this power, the soul bead that has been silent for a long time in Xiao Yang's mind immediately reacted. After buzzing and shaking for a few times, it slowly calmed down. Sure enough, it's a condensed soul fruit. The heart couldn't help shouting in surprise, and Xiao Yang's body was also approaching the lake quickly. However, at this time, Xiao Yang suddenly found that on the land outside the lake, unexpectedly, there is a huge corpse of Warcraft. This is. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang was surprised. His body, which ran forward at a high speed, also stopped at high altitude. At the same time, in a pair of painted black eyes, he looked at the huge body of Warcraft below with a deep color of horror. This Warcraft is like a huge python. Its body surface is covered with a layer of lacquer black scales harder than steel, and its body also shows strange lines. Although it has been dead for some time, it is invisible that the body of this Warcraft can still exude a vague threat, and it is enough to show how powerful this Warcraft is when it is alive. This Warcraft is still a fighting emperor. The look in Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly solidified, and Xiao Yang felt a deep sense of dignity in his heart. A Warcraft at the level of fighting emperor actually died outside the lake. Previously, Xiao Yang's soul power was clearly attacked by some kind of Warcraft. That is to say, the body of the Warcraft in front of him was either killed by the owner of the lake and left here as a deterrent, or it is the original owner of the lake, but now it is beheaded here. Whether it is the former or the latter, Xiao Yang can be sure that there is definitely a more powerful Warcraft under the lake in front of him at the moment. Mutter. With this in mind, Rao was determined by Xiao Yang, but he couldn't help but make a sound of swallowing saliva in his throat. At this time, the bones in his body were quiet, but he didn't know why. He smiled, which made Xiao Yang feel inexplicable. Damn it, I'm afraid the worst strength of this underwater Warcraft is the later stage of the Star Warrior Emperor. This time, no matter what, we have to do our best. The heart was very dignified and vigilant. Xiao Yang thought a little. The injured Beiwang appeared beside Xiao Yang. After several days of recovery, although all the two palm prints on the North King's chest have been recovered, the crack that was forcibly blown out by the fighting skills has not been recovered. Once the North King is used against the enemy, I'm afraid the puppet who has followed Xiao Yang for many years will be destroyed here. Although he was reluctant to give up, Xiao Yang also knew that if he wanted to get something, he had to pay. Maybe this time, the price he had to pay was the North King. Xiao Yang was still a little worried when he offered sacrifices to the North King. Then, his mind moved, and the 9 incarnations immediately condensed out of the void on one side, and then merged into one. After integration, the strength of the incarnation has been greatly improved and reached the level of the 5-star and half-emperor later period. Although it is impossible to help Xiao Yang greatly, but in any case, more strength means more security, which is quite important for Xiao Yang at this time. After several breaths, Xiao Yang led an avatar to the lake with the North King. Looking across the lake, Xiao Yang stared at the exquisite small tree on the island in the center of the lake. Especially after seeing the milky fruit on the tree, his mood was even more fiery. At this time, in front of Xiao Yang, the calm lake suddenly churned with waves. A huge shadow gradually surged up from the bottom of the lake. Finally, it broke through the water. The first to emerge from the water was a single horn in the shape of lightning, followed by a huge snake head, followed by a huge body out of the water. This Warcraft, like the dead Warcraft on the shore, is also a snake-shaped Warcraft, but the difference is that it is clearly a snake, but on the top of the snake, there is a single horn like lightning, and there are lines like a giant whale in its abdomen. However, at the moment when the warcraft appeared, Xiao Yang, who was standing on the shore, just saw the dignified color on his face, but after seeing the warcraft in front of him, he immediately became stunned, not for anything else, because the warcraft in front of him was outside, and Xiao Yang thought he was dead. Ancient whale snake. Narwhal snake. Seeing the behemoth in front of him, Xiao Yang's eyes coagulated for a moment. Then, the expression on the face under the black robe became stunned at this moment. Roar. Human beings, this is the king's territory. If you don't want to die, get out of here, or the king will swallow you alive. Although Xiao Yang recognized the narwhal snake in front of him, Xiao Yang was wearing a black robe and had this black robe blocking breath. Even the narwhal snake who had met with him could not recognize the identity of the person in front of him. The roar like thunder came from the bloody mouth of whale snake. Suddenly, where Xiao Yang stood, the whole void around him was shaking violently, and the ripples of space like water waves swept around. Buzzing bursts, the invisible power is like a storm, attacking Xiao Yang fiercely. In this regard, under the black robe, Xiao Yang's face can't help showing a surprised color. It's less than 2 years. The strength of this big guy has surprisingly reached the level of fighting emperor, which is really amazing. Although today's narwhal snake has reached the level of fighting emperor, Xiao Yang feels much more relaxed in the face of it. Let the hurricane lift the cloak over his head, Xiao Yang stood still, with a slight smile on his handsome face, and looked genially at the behemoth in front of him. A strong man fighting against the emperor. In this relic, no one dared to underestimate the strong man. At this time, Xiao Yang was relaxed and comfortable. Then, when the narwhal snake in front of him saw the tiny human face like a mole ant in front of him, the pupil of the whale snake shrunk fiercely in a pair of scarlet huge animal pupils, revealing a part of the body on the lake, and he couldn't help but retreat. You're not. Hey, old friend, I haven't seen you for a long time. Seeing the snake in front of him, Xiao Yang grinned. Roar. Then, the big snake in front of Xiao Yang suddenly looked up to the sky and roared. Immediately, in Xiao Yang's stunned eyes, his huge body rushed out of the lake, coiled around Xiao Yang's body and surrounded Xiao Yang in the middle. As for the avatar and the North King, it was hung aside by him. Cough. Seeing the big snake like this, although it was Xiao Yang's nature, he couldn't help but show a smile of shanshan on his face. Is it difficult? In front of him, the big guy still remembers that he played with it in order to cultivate Chenjua step. Now do you want to take the opportunity to revenge? With this in mind, Xiao Yang's heart suddenly sank. The development of this situation is different from what he thought just now. But then, just when Xiao Yang couldn't help but want to make some action in his heart, the whale snake wrapped around him at the moment suddenly purred and shouted. Listening to the sound, it was like seeing the savior. Roar. Xiao Yang, how did you get into this broken place? The heavy words full of surprises came from the mouth of narwhal snake. The thunder-like sound made the positive space tremble violently. After hearing this, Xiao Yang's face calmed down quickly. At the same time, his heart was filled with meaning surprise. In his impression, it seemed that he only mentioned his name to the guy in front of him once, and what surprised Xiao Yang was that the narwhal snake could shout his name without hesitation. But then Xiao Yang withdrew his mind. He just secretly guessed that the narwhal snake in front of him had a good memory. Then he explained to the narwhal snake in front of him how he entered the ruins. After Xiao Yang's explanation, the snake in front of him nodded again and again. Finally, Xiao Yang looked up curiously at the narwhal snake in front of him and said in a puzzled tone, "What about you? How did you get into the ruins?" When the outside world first saw the Scarlet Lake, Xiao Yang's first thought was the blood of the big snake in front of him, but from the moment, it was not the same thing. I came a few months ago. At that time, a group of human beings found the ruins at the bottom of my lake, so they drove me away. When I returned there, except for a hole opened from the bottom of the lake, the strong human beings had disappeared. I was curious and entered the hole. Then I came here, but I didn't expect that soon after I came in, this place would disappear after that. I came to this ancient forest by mistake and found that the guy on the shore was dying. Hey. At this point, the big snake smiled. The voice sounded so harsh that Xiao Yang's scalp was numb. I found that the devil's core in this guy's body was still complete. In order not to waste his strength, I had to take it for him, hey. At this point, Xiao Yan came to understand. No wonder he hadn't seen it for 2 years. The strength of Narwhal Snake has actually reached the level of a Star Dipper Emperor from the early days of 9.5 Emperors. Xiao Yang smiled with a sigh. At the same time, the snake in front of him also came back at the moment. A pair of huge scarlet eyes stared at Xiao Yang in front of him and asked in a thick voice. Since you say that the ruins have been completely opened, can you help me get out of here? Although there are many natural materials and treasures in this ancient forest, it is only a man-made space. Compared with here, the outside world is where the strong live. The narwhal snake is a family with high blood among snake warcraft. His bones can't allow him to be bound. Only the outside world can make him feel free and powerful. Hearing this, Xiao Yang was stunned at first, and then his dark eyes flashed. He nodded to the narwhal snake in front of him and said with a smile, "Ha ha, it's no problem. I can't wait for a strong man to go with me." Xiao Yang's words are true. Now, Sun Hanshi has not died. I'm afraid the people of the 4 families have known that Xiao Yang is in the ruins. His identity may have been exposed during this trip. If he can be accompanied by this big guy in front of him, Xiao Yang can avoid a lot of pressure along the way. However, after that, everything focuses on the present. Before that, Xiao Yang has one thing that has not been solved. Standing in front of the lake, Xiao Yang's eyes crossed the lake in front of him and finally landed on the jade white fruit tree in the center of the lake. That's just Ninghun fruit tree. Looking at the soul tree on the island in the center of the lake, at this moment, Rao, with Xiao Yang's heart, couldn't help but surge into a hot mood. After such a long hard search, now, the soul condensation fruit finally appears in front of him. He couldn't help feeling a little in his heart. Immediately, Xiao Yang's body moved. Following the narwhal snake behind him, he appeared on the island in a twinkling of an eye. Seeing the frozen soul fruit close at hand, Xiao Yang was more excited. Unconsciously, his face became a little red. Standing beside the Ninghun fruit tree, Xiao Yang looked carefully at the Ninghun fruit tree in front of him. A surprised light flashed in the depths of his eyes, and he couldn't help but be shocked by the divine power of creation in this world. The trunk of the fruit tree is only the thickness of an adult's arm. The branches are intertwined and extend like vines. They outline a strange outline with each other. If you look at it from a distance, you can find that the posture of the whole tree is like a silly and smiling child. This is the condensed soul fruit tree. Seeing the condensing soul fruit tree in front of him, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be surprised. In this slightly microwave words, it's not hard to hear the suppressed sense of ecstasy in Xiao Yang's heart. Then, Xiao Yang's eyes lingered with pure light continued to move down slowly, and his eyes fell. He saw a snow-white and jade-like fruit standing in the arms of the child. The Yingrun fruit is round and like a pearl. It is spotless and emits a faint fragrance. People feel relaxed and happy when they smell it. Their spirit has been improved several times in an instant. Condensed soul fruit. Finally, seeing the thing that has been most remembered for a long time, Xiao Yang felt at a loss for a moment. Hey, I haven't moved this thing. It's for you. At this time, behind Xiao Yang, the huge narwhal snake gathered his huge head together and observed the small tree like a grass pistil in his eyes. When his eyes looked at the condensed soul fruit, although there was a little color of heart in his eyes, after all, the whale snake took back his mind. Hearing the whale snake's words, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Even if he thought of this, indeed, if the narwhal snake wanted to, it could have swallowed the soul condensation fruit before the relic was opened, but he didn't expect that it would stay it until now, and would say such words. Did you deliberately leave it to me? Xiao Yang took back his eyes and turned to the whale snake behind him. His voice asked in doubt. Hey, it's useless for me to swallow it. What do you want it to do? But I know that you are a herbalist and should be able to use it. I'll leave it to you and you can help me refine pills. Hey! Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang suddenly realized that the huge beast in front of him was not a fool. If he could think of Xiao Yang, he naturally had his own ideas. Hey, I don't know if it's bad to take off the fruit directly, so I didn't dare to take it off. I didn't expect you to come here. Hey, hey. Narwhal Snake smiled foolishly. Although the laughter was terrible, Xiao Yan gradually got used to it and showed a grateful smile to the latter. Although Narwhal Snake also had its own abacus, Xiao Yang benefited more from it anyway. Just for this, Xiao Yang thought that the big snake in front of him was enough to make him grateful. Otherwise, if it really swallowed the frozen soul fruit, he would not be able to wait until this time. As soon as his eyes turned, Xiao Yang looked at the Ninghun fruit tree in the middle of the island. He couldn't help feeling lucky for the Ninghun fruit. The narwhal snake is right. The storage of the condensed soul fruit is not so simple. If it is directly removed by ordinary methods, the original power of the soul in the condensed soul fruit will be lost rapidly. Unless it is swallowed and refined on site, the result will be turned into a rotten fruit, and the soul power will naturally dissipate. For this high-grade natural and earth treasure, if you want to take it off, you can only use some of the same high-quality jade. The soul power contained in the condensed soul fruit is extremely pure, and it is precisely because of this that the condensed soul fruit cannot see the slightest defect and filth. If you want to perfectly preserve the original power of the soul and make it not lose a trace, you must use the same jade without any impurities. Xiao Yang didn't know how long he had been looking forward to this day. For the scene in front of him, he didn't know how many times he had described it repeatedly. Naturally, he had been prepared for the best jade articles. Before walking to the Ninghun fruit tree, Xiao Yang's palm turned over. Suddenly, a crystal-clear jade dagger appeared in Xiao Yang's palm. One hand held the dagger tightly. At the same time, in the other hand, the light flashed, and a jade box of the same material appeared in his hand. With the cooperation of the two, it can be ensured that at the moment of separation of the condensing soul fruit and the condensing soul fruit tree, it will be included in the jade box, and the original power of the soul in the condensing soul fruit will be preserved in the most perfect way. Squatting slowly in front of the Ninghun fruit tree, Xiao Yang carefully controlled the dagger close to the stem between the Ninghun fruit and the fruit tree. At the same time, he held the jade box in one hand and placed it directly below the Ninghun fruit. Then, he gently cut the Ninghun fruit from the small stem with the dagger in his hand. The jade dagger, without the pouring of fighting spirit, is usually difficult to hurt people even if you want to hurt people. At this moment, in the face of the Ninghun fruit tree, it is a gentle stroke. Xiao Yang doesn't even use any strength. The Ninghun fruit is completely separated from the fruit tree, and then it falls into the jade box below. Immediately, Xiao Yang's heart moved. The jade box he had already prepared quickly rose out of thin air and sealed the jade box perfectly. After ensuring that there was no loss of the soul condensation fruit, Xiao Yang took a breath and held the jade box in his hands. The ecstasy in his heart was all displayed on his face. The jade box was carefully collected into the ring. After everything was ready, Xiao Yang got up. Immediately, Xiao Yang only felt a huge stone in his heart. Finally, it fell completely, and he was able to breathe in his heart. Hey, I finally got it. Let's go. Now that we're here, let's go to the depths of the ruins. With a slight smile, Xiao Yang looked happy. Together with the narwhal snake on one side, he also gave a happy roar. After being trapped here for so long, it can finally leave. But, just as Xiao Yangang was about to start, his body in the air was a slight meal. He smiled. Among the confused eyes of Whale Snake, he slowly turned his body and looked at the dead snake on the shore. A World of Warcraft at the level of Fighting Emperor, even if it is dead, its value is also expensive. Even if it is the same strong Fighting Emperor, it will also be moved. At present, how can he easily let go of such a big golden mountain in front of Xiao Yang? After Xiao Yang and Narwhal Snake left the lake for a long time, many strong fighters came here. But what they saw after all was only an empty lake. Here and the soul condensing fruit here had already been taken away, and here is still empty. This is Ninghun fruit tree. Can you say that there is Ninghun fruit here? At the sight of the small white tree that looked like a child, some of the strong fighting emperors came to recognize it. Immediately, a voice full of surprised words came from the mouth of the strong fighting emperors present at the moment, and then turned into a helpless sigh. At the same time, somewhere in the ancient forest, Xiao Yang was also walking through the mountains and forests alone. His body wrapped in black robes was like a painted black arrow. In an instant, he crossed the void. A slight bang rang one after another from several towering ancient trees nearby. Under Xiao Yan's incomparable speed, make those sounds sound like the same. As for the unicorn whale snake at the moment, in order not to attract the attention of the strong in the forest, it changed its body shape. It made a mini snake only a few inches long and attached to Xiao Yan's arm under the black robe. Under the cover of the black robe, no one could find the powerful warcraft hidden under the black robe. The vastness of the ancient forest doomed Xiao Yan to stay here for a few days, but it's good. In this way, Xiao Yan can try his best to recover his strength before reaching the depths of the ruins, which also allows Xiao Yan to have more confidence and compete with the people of the 4 families in the ruins. On his way, Xiao Yan naturally met many strong fighting emperors who were resting. As for these people, they were different from those semi-strong fighting emperors. As fighting emperors, most of them walked alone. Their strong strength was enough to make them have the courage to face all kinds of dangers alone. Of course, this was only the most one-sided explanation, or perhaps because of their strong strength, let them become more afraid of life and death, so that they no longer trust anyone. Blindly cautious, which makes them lose more important things than strength. In the face of those colorful and cautious eyes, Xiao Yan's eyes under his black robe looked indifferent. He had been used to this kind of person for a long time. Naturally, he would not feel anything. Instead, the narwhal snake clinging to Xiao Yan's arm at the moment carefully glanced at the eyes of those people outside. Rao is a warcraft, I felt a chill in my heart. These humans are too terrible. Their eyes are afraid of us warcraft. You humans say warcraft is terrible. In my opinion, you humans are the most terrible. The small voice of words came into Xiao Yan's ears. From this word, Xiao Yan didn't hear any meaning, had the meaning of joke, and completely sneered and ridiculed. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yan's body shape was surprisingly sluggish. This small change immediately attracted the eyes of the strong. A mysterious black-robed man who could not see his strength could not tolerate their carelessness. Of course, while these people were on guard against Xiao Yan, the mysterious man, they were naturally on guard. Now, in this relic, all of them are competitors. The so-called monks are many and there are few treasures that can attract the eyes of the strong fighting emperor. It is doomed that there are only a few. Apart from the 4 families, these strong fighting emperor can share very little oil and water. Therefore, these people often take other people as prey. And because of this, almost everyone thinks so in their hearts. Naturally, they are more cautious with each other. Of course, this atmosphere is not destined to last long, because as long as there is an opportunity, a treasure that can make all the strong fighters excited in front of these guys, these people will immediately become a group of hungry greedy wolves, desperate to bite and rob. Glancing at all the strong fighting emperors in the field, Xiao Yan couldn't help but sneer. Yes, just like the narwhal snake said, sometimes once human beings are terrible, even the Warcraft family with ferocity as a pronoun should also avoid the edge. At least, from this moment, the narwhal snake on Xiao Yan's arm is also worthy of Xiao Yan's trust. Unlike these guys in front of you, once you expose the wound to them, they will not receive the due care of human beings, but will expose rows of shark-like bloodthirsty teeth. Glancing indifferently, Xiao Yan's eyes flickered slightly under his black robe, and then he flashed away towards the depths of the mountain forest. When Xiao Yan's figure completely disappeared in the field of vision, the strong fighters sitting cross-legged in the woods took back their vigilant eyes and immediately swept the others around him. The vigilance in their eyes increased instead of decreasing. A moment later, between the mountains and forests, Xiao Yan looked up at the darkening sky at the top of his head. The special envoy couldn't help but frown. No wonder those who fought against the emperor would gather together. I'm afraid the ancient forest at night is the most dangerous moment. With this in mind, Xiao Yan took a deep breath and swept his eyes randomly among the mountains and forests. After a few breaths, his eyes under the black robe locked a remote tree hole. A smile was sketched at the corners of his mouth. Immediately, his body moved. The next moment, Xiao Yan's body appeared in front of the tree hole. Most of the ancient trees in the ancient forest have a cross-section several feet long, and now the ancient tree in front of Xiao Yan is even larger. Therefore, standing in front of the tree hole, Xiao Yan is like standing in front of a natural villa. From the outside, the size of the tree hole is enough to stand more than 100 people at the same time, not to mention Xiao Yang alone. Oh, I can't imagine that in this deep mountain and old forest, I will encounter such a good natural place. Xiao Yang smiled and didn't think much, so he stepped into the tree hole. However, at this time, in front of Xiao Yang's eyes, the giant tree suddenly worked. In an instant, the ancient tree seemed to be alive. The vines on the ground immediately stood up like big snakes. The green fighting spirit spewed out of the vines in an instant, turned into green arrows and shot at Xiao Yang. At the same time, under the black robe, the look on Xiao Yang's face also changed suddenly at this moment. This video will end here.